The Paul Leslie Interviews.
Ladies and gentlemen, we're welcoming Walt Johnson. He's a trumpeter, a recording artist, a performing artist. He has performed with a lot of very well-known artists: Elvis Presley, Frank Sinatra, Barry Manilow, Henry Mancini, the Pointer Sisters, Lionel Richie. I could go on and on. Thank you so much for joining us.
Well, thank you for contacting me. It's true. I didn't set out to play with all those people, but it's just being in the right place at the right time and knowing the right people, I guess. And being able to play the right note at the right time also matters. So that's where I've been.
So it is important who you know?
Well, of course. To make it in the music business, it takes pretty much three things. First it takes luck, and that under that heading means knowing the right people, being in the right place at the right time. Second is talent. When you get the job, you have to play the right notes. Luck, talent, and then persistence. When you're out of work, just don't make a lamp out of it yet. But just keep work, just keep on waiting. And practicing, and just don't give up.
Listening to your own recordings, they're best described as jazz. Is it hard being a jazz musician in today's musical landscape?
Well, of course, there's that story about the jazz trumpet player that won the lottery. They asked him what he was going to do with the money. He says, well, he's just going to keep playing until the money ran out, But, there's really not many, there's not much money to be made in jazz, but I just think that, and I've never really considered myself a jazz trumpet player. I'm more of a lead trumpet player, and I play what's on the page, the music, but I love playing jazz, but there's always somebody better next to me. I mean, I've sat next to Freddie Hubbard, Trumpeter, all these great trumpet players, and I'm not going to play the jazz in front of them. I got to pass it to them, of course, so it's always been somebody better, so it just kind of intimidates me, but I like to play jazz.
Where are you from?
I grew up in El Monte, California, in a small town. It's still there. It's really nice. I was drafted out of Los Angeles City College. I went with Cy Zentner's band out of Los Angeles City College. They drafted me off the band. I was with Cy for 8 months. Cy Zentner had a hit record, Up a Lazy River, if you remember that. And it had a little kiss off on the last note, a little trumpet, da, 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 like that. And so I was I get the phone call. I'm sitting at home, and I get the phone call. They said, hey, can you do the jingle kiss off on the end of... I was 19 years old. I said, well, I guess, yes, I can. So, I found myself on Cy Zentner's band. And, but in Las Vegas, I'm up on the stage there, and the marshal comes up and he hands me my draft notice and said, greetings from the President of the United States. And I served a year in Vietnam. Actually, I was in the band in Vietnam, so I did practice, keep my chops up. But they say you get your job back when you get out of the Army. I went right to Las Vegas where Cy Zentner was, and he gave me a 2-week job playing, and I got several offers from that, and that's how my name just started getting around, and that's what happens. You're in the right place at the right time, like I said, knowing the right people.
What branch were you in the armed forces when you were in Vietnam?
I was in the 1st Air Cavalry Division. Then I got transferred to USAREE, which is, the United States Army Vietnam, and Van Hoa. But I was in the first 6 months, I was in the 1st Air Cavalry Division band, which was in Phuoc Vinh, and we did play little concerts, but most of the time we're pulling duty, like guard duty and various other things.
When you finished with Vietnam, what was your aspiration? What were you going to try to do then?
Well, they do say, I don't remember what the law was, but every time when you're drafted, you're supposed to get your job back when you get back out of it, when you serve your 2 years. So I had served my 2 years, and I bought a car and drove to Las Vegas, and I show up at the Tropicana Hotel where he had the band, where Les Eisenman had the band, and I said, well, hey, here I am. I'm back. I'm ready. And he looked at the trumpet section, and they look at me like, hey, and he says, well, I'm happy with the trumpets I have now. I'm sorry, but he did give me 2 weeks with Julie London up in the Blue Room, and he featured me in this one little solo in Ed type, and I hit a high G, and I don't know, I got several offers, one from the Dunes, one from Paul Anka, and the other one was to be on the house band at the Landmark Hotel, which I thought, oh, that's great. And I took that job, and it was steady, and I was there for a year, worked my way up to lead trumpet, and then was on the Hague Relief Band, which played a different show every night. I was in that band for 3 years, and that's where I met all these different conductors, and met Sinatra's conductor, and met Wayne Newton, and all those. I played every show in Vegas at that time on the Relief Band, which was a very good job. Ended up with Wayne Newton for 3 years. From Wayne Newton, I quit Wayne Newton to go with Elvis Presley because his lead trumpet had passed away in an auto accident. So I took his place, and I enjoyed that. It was a really prestigious and unusual job when I'm playing in those arenas with Elvis Presley. We're 10 days home, 10 days on tour. And then one day we were flying from Pueblo, Colorado to, supposed to be to Portland, Maine, and for a concert, and we get word that Elvis passed away, and he died. That was shocking. So I didn't know what I was going to do, and out of a job, and just a real party job. It was great, but I get back to Las Vegas, and I couldn't see myself just sitting there with a bow tie playing these shows anymore, Liberace and all that. So I called some people I knew in Los Angeles. They said, "Come on down, and we'll set you up with a TV show and here and there." And that's knowing the right people, being in the right place at the right time, and persistence. That's what it takes.
So you said 3 years with Wayne Newton?
I did. I don't really put that on my resume, but I think it was about 2 or 3 years. I think it was off and on. But see, what happened was when Wayne was off, I played second trumpet with Elvis Presley next to Pat Houston, who was the early trumpet one that passed away. And when Pat died, I took his place. But for about I guess about 6 months or more, I was doing Elvis and Wayne Newton at the same time, but not playing lead. It wasn't until Pat died that I took that place. And it was better because you got more money and you got your own room and all that, so it's better.
We're talking with trumpeter Walt Johnson. When you got the gig with Elvis Presley, did you have an initial meeting with him, or was it just kind of all professional?
Well, it's through the conductor. Joe Gershio was his personal conductor, and Joe hired me, and which in later years Joe and I became very good friends. And he's, they took and made a screen show in 1998. They put Elvis up on it, without his, I call it the Get Elvis Reverse Karaoke Show is what it is, but they've got Elvis up on a screen and live band. And we've toured over the world with that thing, all over the place with that. South America, Europe, and Australia, all over Japan. Stig Edgerton was the producer of that, but all Elvis's original band, which was there, Ron Todd on drums and James Burton on guitar, and we toured with Elvis up on the screen. And that was just like being there, only Elvis never forgot the words, and he was always there on time, and it's just, it's great. So it was Joe Gershio was my connection to get the job. I called him, and he said to me, he says, "Well, you're never going to quit Wayne Newton." And I said, "Will you give me a chance to work on it?" So I went into Wayne Newton. I did the proper channels. I talked to his manager first. He said, "I'm going to meeting with Wayne." I was going to ask him for a big raise, and I knew I wouldn't get it. And that was the way I was going to be able to go with Elvis. So I go in, and Wayne, I'll never forget it. He says to me, he says, "Walt, this isn't an open forum. I'm going to do the talking." He says, "When I met you, you were out of work." That wasn't true. He says, "You wanted to be my lead trumpet player. I made you my lead trumpet player. You wanted more money. I gave you more money." He says, "And now you want this?" He says, and he starts crying, and this is the worst thing that's happened to me since Aramis died. And he says, now get out of here. So I went out and I saw his manager standing at the door, and I said, 2 weeks notice. And I quit just like that. And then I was out, just Elvis was my job. I had 10 days out, 10 days back. And nobody was thinking of him dying. I thought, well, this is a great job. He'll do forever, you know. But no, things last. Just like, which we're going to talk about, Frank Sinatra Jr. I was with him for 28 years. And we're doing this great tour, the centennial tour with his father, you know, about his father. And he passed away in Daytona on March 16th last year, you know. So, been tough. I was with his dad, too, when he died. You know, I was playing for him when he died. So that's 3 times that's happened to me now. I'm thinking it's me. Darn, you know.
With all the artists that you've performed with, you've worked with, as we've already mentioned, Frank Sinatra Jr., Wayne Newton, Elvis Presley. There's been a lot of artists you've worked with. Has there been any that you were the most impressed with?
Well, of course, Mancini and his beautiful arrangements. And I actually, Harry Connick, I was on his band for 3 months, also touring with his band, and he does arrangements on the bus at night, and then the band plays them the next day, you know, and they print them out on the, you know, the computer. But Henry Mancini, all his compositions, and he was just a very sweet fella, nice man. Elvis was an incredible singer, although people don't give him credit for that. He could sing great, even up to the last day. Frank Sinatra Jr. was as well as a great musician and singer. He was a great orator, and he did several books that he, you know, talking books, and he did every narration every year with his high school reunion. He made a disc for them to of the reminiscing of his high school years, and that was his his forte that he liked to admit was his narration. You know, he just had a great speaking voice. I was impressed with, you know, they're some incredible talents. There's a reason these people are where they are, you know. I mean, Wayne Newton says he could play every instrument. Yeah, he could play one song on every instrument, but still, that's pretty impressive, you know. And he's a great showman, and he followed the crowd. If he saw the crowd liked his country song, or if liked the ballads, or if they liked his up tunes or something, the show tunes, he'd go in that direction, and he pleased the crowd. And he's always a standing ovation, always, you know. And he's great. So it's just the musicians put Wayne Newton down because he wanted them to participate in the show. And you know, musicians, they're looking at their, you know, the musician's salute is, you know, they're looking at their watch. You know, that's the musician's salute. You know? So, but they don't want to look like they're having a good time. But he insisted on that. But I had it down, you know. Every time he'd turn around, I'd be clapping and smiling, and then he'd turn back around the audience, and I'd be like, that's how you keep your job with Wayne Newton, you know. And I was warned when I first joined Sinatra by Don Baldini, the bass player. He said, "Hey, stay away from him. You know, you may not like your cologne, and he'll fire you." And it's true. I remember Bob Pearson, I don't know, he was feeling his oats one day, and he just went up to Frank Sinatra. He was the lead alto player, and he put his arm around him and starts going, and joking around. And he was gone. He was gone by the end of the rehearsal.
I see.
That was fun.
The relationship with Frank Sinatra, Sr. in this case, was a very professional one.
Oh, yeah, professional. I must have talked to him like maybe 5 times in 10 years, and it was always small talk, like how you feeling, how you doing, how's your throat, and just just small talk. And same with Elvis. You know, I was, you know, intimidated to go up to him and talk to him, but you know, I just talked to him like a couple of times in 3 years. I worked for Elvis for 3 years. Yeah.
We're talking with Walt Johnson. Why do you suppose it is that the instrument you ended up on was the trumpet? What is it about the trumpet that you like?
Well, I remember when Mr. Johnson came around to our school, and I was 9 years old, and he came around to school and he demonstrated all the instruments, and trombone, clarinet, you know, and sax, and he played that trumpet. And it's like, oh, that's for me. That's the loudest. So that's why I picked the trumpet. I kind of regret it in a way because, other musicians, they don't have to practice every single day. But the trumpet is a daily chore to keep the muscles up. That saying where if you don't practice one day, you notice it. 2 days, other musicians notice it. 3 days, everybody notices that really fits with the trumpet. Your muscles try to go back to their natural state, which is not playing trumpet. And I have a Maynard Ferguson concert I have to give, playing featured at the Catalina Club in Hollywood on May 3rd. When I get done, I'm on vacation right now. When I get back, so I'm practicing every day just while I'm out on vacation. So it's not really vacation. Well, it is, of course, but you know what I'm saying.
Yeah. Listening to your solo albums, there's a certain collaborative effort with the musicians when you're recording. What do you look for in a musical collaborator?
Musical collaborator meaning somebody you're working with? What is the communication between us? Or?
Yeah, what do you, when you decide to work with somebody, for example, in a studio situation, what is it that you look for in another person when you work with them?
Well, there's a certain chromosome friendliness to music that you can feel. I can tell if a person is a good musician even when they play a march or something. Just something about some people that are musical, and you can tell. I don't know, and I don't know how else to say it. Just a musical person.
You have several albums to your credit, and by albums I mean the albums that are Walt Johnson albums, as opposed to playing on someone else's album. What is it you're trying to accomplish when you make a record?
Well, I remember the first record I made was it's called Trumpet Scroll, and it features high notes on trumpet, and it's kind of like trumpets, that's the thing, they like to play high notes, and it's kind of showing off, and it's like an opera singer who can hit the highest note and stuff. But I was at Thanksgiving dinner, and my stepbrother had put on the album, and I couldn't believe that I was listening to it at Thanksgiving dinner, all these screaming high notes, and I was like, that was offensive. So I said, I'm going to make music that's a little more friendly to listen to, and you could play at the dinner table. I mean, not dinner music, but just kind of hip music, and that's what I came up with. So all my rest of my albums are smooth jazz. I did put on the Ladies album, which incidentally Frank Sinatra Jr. is probably one of his last recordings. He sang Nancy on my Ladies album CD, which Ron Foyer arranged. It's that kind of music that I'm after now, and it's sort of just easy to listen to. I don't think anybody really appreciates high notes in their face anymore. I mean, trumpet players do, and it's exciting, but only in the right place. But certainly not at the dinner table. And just going along in the radio, what song would you stop and listen to? Would it be the high note one, or would it be the soothing one?
Probably soothing.
There you go. Yeah.
Yeah.
And that's the direction my music has taken me. And you can tell if you've listened to Warmth of the Sun, which is by far the biggest selling of my albums, and it's all kind of smooth jazz, no high notes.
Well, you said Warmth of the Sun is the best-selling album. Which one is your favorite?
My favorite, of course, is Trumpet Scroll, which is it show off the high note one, because my son and I worked on it, and it was just a pet project, but it was my first one. So I had taken Bill Chase's place. They called me to take Bill Chase's place with the Chase Band, and we did an album called Watch Closely Now, and that influenced my playing too, because I love that cascading trumpet sound of the trumpets, da na 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 na, that kind of. I love that trumpet trickery stuff, and I tried to incorporate that into that album.
I wanted to talk a little bit about the Ladies album that you did.
Mm-hmm.
What inspired that idea?
Well, I guess I had written a song for my ex-wife. I kind of regret it now, but no, it was that. I wrote that song, and then I said, well, I wrote her name, and then I wanted to do Maria and, all the other names, and Maria was my favorite song, and that was the only one I featured in like a high note thing. But the others, Laura, and it's all women's names, including Freddie Hubbard's Bridget was his wife, a song he wrote for his wife. So that was just kind of an idea. I had all women's names.
And the song that has Frank Sinatra Jr. singing on it, you mentioned it's probably one of the last recordings that he made of his voice.
Yeah, it was. And it was actually done before he had throat cancer. Yeah, I'm sure it was definitely the last recording, and I don't think he did any recordings after he had throat cancer. So, but he was coming back, and certainly he came back great, and we were singing a full show, the Sinatra Centennial show, and we were, doing in the middle of that, and had just done a tour of Europe. We played at Royal Albert Hall, standing ovation. I took pictures of it from my seat in the trumpet section. And we had a very successful thing. It's called it the Sinatra Centennial Show. He had written the whole show, and he was singing his father's songs. And, he did sound a little like his father. People always compared him. And as a matter of fact, I heard a commercial, and I thought, have you heard that commercial that singing? And he says, yeah, I did that. I thought it was his dad. So it's just, you can't really tell on some songs, but the others you can. The difference in it, people are always comparing the two. He was a fine musician. I'm getting off on different branches here, but tell me what your original question was. You wanted that.
Oh, we were just talking about that being his last recording.
Oh, yeah.
It was absolutely fine. I don't mind that you branch off. In fact, it's interesting. You're good as an interviewee.
Thank you. Well, like it's in there somewhere. I've been at all these places and all these people, like you say, and it's just, we started talking about Henry Mancini. He was a sweetheart, a really nice man, took us out to dinner. Frank Jr. every night took us out to dinner, every night after the show, and I was gaining weight, and as everybody in the band was, he even had nicknames for all of us, the Tons of the Pioneers, and he was Yasser, you are fat, Henry's Habit Large and stuff. But he had nicknames for all of us. Mine was Whitaker Walt. That's from The Russians Are Coming. And the drummer was Uncle Salty, and the piano player was Moses. And then his manager, Sergeant Major. He had all these names that he called us. Yeah, I first met him when I played the Muppets show. He and his Nancy were at the International Hotel. Later, I played in Fresno, of all places, with Pat Longo's band, and he came in and sang with the band. I was going to tell you that one time we had a meeting in Atlantic City where Frank Jr. got us into a private room, and he says, guys, this goes no further than this. He says, and as a matter of fact, if indeed anybody asks you about this meeting, you refer to it as Project Saffron. It's very serious, and we're like, Project Saffron, okay? And he told us that he'd been offered for us to all do a Broadway show, and he'd be conducting and singing, and it was a Broadway show. And he said, it's so secret. He says, I don't want you to even breathe a word of it. He says, so Project Saffron. So we're on the bus the next day, and Carl Fontana, the trombone player, he passed away, a great guy. He says, hey, I was down in the boardwalk yesterday. He says, and this little shoeshine boy came up to me, and he says, you know about that Project Saffron? And he goes, he says, you know about that? He goes, yeah, that gig ain't going to happen.
Jeez.
that was Carl's humor. And it was great, funny guy.
So Frank Sinatra Jr., he seems like he was a very intelligent and also funny guy.
Yeah, and just very personable and very, that voice, that big voice, and he always answered the phone, yes. I don't know why he did that. Yes. Yeah. Frank, are you mad at me? No, well, yes.
When he was a guest on this program, he spoke for more than an hour, and a lot of people commented. They said, he never called you Paul once. It almost sounded like a professor in college. He'd say, "And you know what else, Mr. Leslie?" And,
Mr.
and, then,
Leslie.
and then he'd go into the next point.
Yeah. Well, people called him Mr. Sinatra, after, when his father died, we were sitting around the dinner table. He lifted a glass of Stolichnaya and he said, "Guys, you're looking at the new Mr. Sinatra." And we all clicked glasses. Yeah. Different. Yeah. And we were all waiting, but you were all going to be working, and then we weren't, No, we did. It was a great run. It's like people tell me that 28-year run with him, that's pretty good. If anybody you can work for 28 years, that's amazing. But it wasn't supposed to end so soon, just so sudden like that. We're in Daytona, and I was there with. I saw him. Went to apartments. We went to a drugstore. I bought mouthwash. He bought some flashlights. This is about 12:30. We had breakfast at Bob Evans, and I parted way. He got in the elevator, and I said, "I'll see you at 4:30." And he said, "Okay, Walt, And I show up at 4:30. I'm in my gig suit with my pass on and everything, and my trumpets. And I waited for 5 minutes, waited for 10 minutes, and I called Merrill, and Merrill says, "You didn't hear?" And I said, "What?" "He had a massive heart attack, and he's in the hospital." I was like, "Oh no, man!" And then all the band were just sitting outside on the patio, and Isaac had his telephone in his hand, and he's talking to his mother, who was our manager, Andrea, and he's gone. And that was it. And he died. It was like shocking. 72 years old. And in his prime. And he had suffered with prostate cancer, and then he had suffered also with throat cancer, which miraculously, a singer with throat cancer, and he came back singing. And for a year he was eating through a tube in his chest. Pour some white stuff in there. Yeah. We became very close the last couple of years. He moved to the city where I live. And, we go out to dinner a lot, he and Tasha. So, and I just understand that his wife, they were no longer married, but his one-time wife, she just passed away a couple of days ago from flu. Yeah. Cynthia Sinatra. You know who I'm talking about?
I knew of her, but I never met her.
Okay, yeah. Yeah.
I was actually at that hotel in Daytona Beach, Florida, when Mr.
The motel?
The hotel, the Hilton Garden Inn. I was recording an interview. I was there, yes.
When he passed away?
Yeah. Around that same time, maybe about an hour before, I was taping an interview with Terry Woodson.
Oh, very good. Yeah.
So you live in California?
Yeah. Yeah, I live in Camarillo.
What do you think about California? I know that's...
Well...
this could go anywhere.
Politically, better not to say. And other than that, weather, can't beat it. Sports teams, I'm an Angel fan, and Clippers. No, I've always lived in. I couldn't imagine living anywhere else really. Now, I don't like Vegas, the heat, and Arizona's too hot. But it's nice here right now. I'm in Santan Valley, Arizona, and visiting our 10 grandchildren, and my wife Jessica, and it's just it's great outside right now.
How does someone know when they've made it?
Well, I know my son. Let me just talk about my son. My son had several jobs, construction work, and worked in a pizza place and all this stuff. And I showed him how to work Pro Tools, and he took it on, and he went to school and learned Pro Tools really well. Now, for the last 9 years, he's the sound editor on the Young and the Restless television show. He's won 4 Emmys. He's up for another one this year. Been nominated almost every year. And I think he's made it. I think he has made it. And I think that if you can make a living off trumpet, or if you can make a living off anything, and just then you've made it, you know.
Doing something you want to do.
Yeah, or just falling into something that turns out to be good. You know, I mean, I don't really, to be honest, you know, it's not fun to practice anymore. It's not fun. It's a chore. I guess the gratification is when you get there and all the other musicians are waiting. Oh yeah, you're Walt Johnson. I want to hear how you sound, and then you make a couple mistakes. And or you play good, and they're like, hey, you know. So it's like you're mostly playing for the other musicians more than you're the crowd. To be honest, it's always been like that. You can ask anybody. Yeah.
Hmm. What is the best thing about being Walt Johnson?
Well, it's funny. This trumpet player I was sat next to recently, he says, "Man, I love sitting next to a legend." And so I asked Terry Woodson. I said, "What is that legend when he goes old?" So that's pretty much. It's just I've pretty much done it all, in my opinion. I don't see where I really want to achieve greater things on trumpet. To me, I've done enough, and I know that I'm not going to hit the highest note, because the highest note on trumpet has not yet been hit.
For anyone who's listening in, wherever they might be, what would you say to them?
I'd say that you have to be confident and enjoy life. If you get to a place where you feel confident that you can do what you like to do, but enjoy it. You know, don't let time pass you by worrying about it. Worrying doesn't help.
Worry's a killer, as they say.
Yeah, stress and killing yourself. You know, no such thing as a problem, only a solution. Sometimes those solutions bring more problems, though.
That's true.
I'd say you just to enjoy life while you have it, because, well, I mean, look at Frank Jr., look at Elvis, look at Frank Sr. They're just poof, gone.
Fleeting, yes.
Yeah, and fleeting. So tell me about your radio show. What?
Yeah, we've been doing this for 13 plus years now, and it's a talk show. And also I play musical selections along the way. And
oh, very good. Do you have some of them? Can you play my Nancy with Frank Jr.?
I absolutely could, yeah. That would be great.
Yeah. He wasn't particularly thrilled about the arrangement when he sang it, but it was Ron Foyer, and I had to stick with it. He's my friend, and I didn't want to hurt his feelings, you know. So, but I was going to tell you that we had my wife and I had last Christmas. We get a phone call on Christmas Eve, and Frank Jr. said, "You want to join us for Christmas dinner?" And we took us to Morton's in Beverly Hills. He and his girlfriend Tasha and the realtor friend. Just my wife and I, was just the five of us. We got pictures from that night. It was just last Christmas, you know. That shows that just tells you that I felt he wouldn't do that if it wasn't close, you know. Why would he invite us? And in our, you know, the whole band in his refrigerator had mugs with our names on them, frosty mugs.
Wow.
And the very first time, just kind of an idea of what Frank Jr.'s mind was like. Very first time I was on tour with his father. He was conducting for his father, and we were in Australia with Liza and Sammy, and we're in the elevator, and I just happened to, in the hotel, I was in the elevator just with Frank, you know, and I was a little nervous, and hey, what you been doing? And he goes, "Oh, I've been reading." "Oh, what you reading?" He says, "I've been reading the dictionary." And he says, "Oh, the dictionary." He says, "Yeah, do you realize how many meanings the word run has?" I said, "No, 9 meanings." And then I start thinking, like, well, let's see, run in your stocking, run, dog run, you know. So that was one of my first conversations ever with Frank Sinatra. Then we got to, of course, through the years, 28 years later, we got to know each other a lot better. But that's just a little insight. And, you know, he could talk about any subject. He just, you know, and just really interesting man, as you know. You talked to him.
Yeah,
You know, had
yeah,
talked to him.
yeah. He very much was. I wish somebody had made a documentary film or written a book about him.
Really, really. I mean, and he's a gifted composer. Have you heard the song Spice?
Absolutely.
And Over the Land, which he composed, and then Billy May did the arrangement of, and it had all the flags from the United States flags that he put up on the stage, and he remembered all the words to that. He wrote that. Incredible. Performed it. Do you know what I'm talking about?
I don't know
Over
that
the Land.
one. I'm not
Yeah,
familiar with that.
Yeah, great. Everything. Yeah, it's sad he's gone. It really is.
Yeah. What is in the future?
What is in my future?
Yeah, in the future of Walt Johnson.
Well, I've got to do this Maynard concert coming up, and I have some various. I'm playing with Tex Baneke's band and stuff like that coming up, little shows. But I want to. I'm in my RV. I've got a studio, a Pro Tools studio and a microphone and all the gadgets. And I'm going to do a Christmas album, working on it, original tunes and some religious songs and Christmas album. And I want to get rolling on that and just play stuff that I want to do. I really don't feel like going on any cruise ship gigs or anything like that. I'm almost retired, I have to say, 70 years old. But you shouldn't really always retire. I still want to play, but just stuff I want to do.
On your terms, leisurely.
Yeah, kind of. Yeah, if I don't want to do it, I don't want to do it. Yeah, and if it's not the money, it's just like I don't feel like doing that.
Yeah,
that's a great privilege when we can afford not to do that. When not to do what you don't have to do. I mean, in the old days, I take every job, like Chinese funerals and jug bands, and in the mood, Mickey gigs, TV shows, everything, anything written on a 50. Yeah, if anybody pays you to honk on a piece of metal, you better take it. That's what I used to say. Yeah, not so much anymore. Not so much. I'm enjoying life with my wife and our two little Yorkies, Mickey and Minnie. Oh, their ears just went up when I said that. Funny.
You've got a great laugh, by the way.
Thank you, man.
Anyone out there, if they want more information, they can visit waltjohnsonmusic.com. There's a bio on there. There's some press and reviews that you can read. Anything you might want to know. So you can visit waltjohnsonmusic.com. So my last question, who is Walt Johnson at heart?
At heart? Boy, that's a deep question, man. I'm a gentle soul, Christian, God-fearing, Vietnam veteran. Let's see, Angel fan, good husband, grandfather, father. What can I say? Take care of my mother. She's 93, 94.
Wow.
Yeah, she'll be. There's hope for me. I'm able to live that long. It'd be great, man. Hope it's in the genes.
Well, Mr. Johnson, thank you very much for joining us here on the program. If you're ever in the Southeast, by all means.
Okay, I'll look you up. Well, I appreciate the publicity, and if it helps to sell CDs on CD Baby, I've got all my CDs for sale out there, and just put a little plug in for that, I guess.
Absolutely.
And it doesn't hurt. It costs a lot to make those things, and it's going to be, I'll probably never see all that money come back. But it's like the guy said, well, I've got 1 million seller. He goes, really? He says, yeah, I got 1 million of them in my cellar. All right, we'll go out on that joke.
Well, sir, thank you so much. It's been a pleasure.
Thank you.